Hey guys, my name's Dale, and you're watching The Factoid. Right now, I want you to think of the first third world country that comes to your mind. I'll give you a moment. Now make sure to remember it. Now for those of you who jumped right to Africa and picked the countries of Zimbabwe or Ethiopia, you're gonna be in for a bit of a surprise. So, if we were to use the concept of first, second, and third world countries, these selected countries would be placed in the following groups. Some first world countries would be Zimbabwe, Iran, and Papua New Guinea. Some second world countries would be Ethiopia, Vietnam, and Poland. While some third world countries would be Sweden, Ireland, Chile, and Saudi Arabia. So you're probably thinking, what? Sweden's a third world country while Zimbabwe's a first world country? You're just pulling my leg. Wow. But I bet you if I were to add 4 more countries to this list, you'd understand these placements a lot better. Those countries are the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and China. They're being grouped depending on the countries they were allied with during the Cold War. And this was the original way to determine which world group your country would be placed in. It had little to do with money and more so politics. So the concept of first, second, and third world countries was coined by the United Nations. It was put together in the 1940s to organize the countries that were around during the Cold War. Countries that were allied with the United States were considered first world countries, while countries that were allied with the Soviet Union were considered second world countries, and lastly, countries that remained neutral throughout the whole affair were considered third world countries. So I hope that cleared things up. This map right here will show you the countries and their specific alliances. Blue being first world countries, red being second world countries, and green being third world countries. Now see if the country you pick at the beginning of the video is right. Now most of you may be thinking that's not the case anymore, and there is some truth in that. Once the Cold War ended, there was a push to rework the concepts of first, second, and third world nations. First world nations would be dedicated to countries that were democracies and had a high average income for the residents, while second world countries would be dedicated to nations that were either communistic and well off to do, or kind of okay nations in terms of overall income for its people, and so on and so forth. But as you can see, the system doesn't really work that well. Even if a country became more rich than the richest nation in the world right now, it couldn't be a first world nation if it was communistic. And that doesn't make sense when you're trying to understand the overall human development of each country, when what type of government you have is a factor. Because basically the first, second, and third world concepts come down to the income of the people in the nation as well. But there's so much more to a country than just the amount of money it makes. Which is why most experts and people with a good understanding of international economics tend not to use that. For the first, second, and third world concepts are problematic. So almost all of them tend to support the HDI, or the Human Development Index. HDI uses 3 major factors in order to determine whether a nation is doing well or not. These factors can be broken down into individual mathematical equations. The first equation calculates the average life expectancy. The second equation involves a country's education index, which also has 2 equations within itself, including mean years of schooling index and expected years of schooling index. And lastly, it does involve the income index. This in the end makes the HDI, which is a geometric mean of the previous 3 normalized indices. The equation looks like this. And overall, this is a relatively new equation, being developed in 2010 alone. But the HDI did use an older equation, which has been used since the 90s. A man of the name of Bob Al-Haq, who's a gentleman from Pakistan, who was the man who pushed this concept of being able to rate countries depending on this, instead of just putting them in first, second, and third world countries just on their income. With all that said, there are 4 major groups which the HDI can place nations within. Very high human development, high human development, medium human development, and low human development. If you'd like to look at all the countries and their placement in the HDI, check out the link in the description. And what the HDI does is moves our understanding from seeing a world like this to seeing the world more like this, which is a better representation of what is truly going on. And that's a summary giving you guys an understanding of first, second, and third world countries, as well as understanding why you shouldn't use it over the HDI. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My question for you guys is what placement did your country get on the HDI? And with that said, my name's Dale, you're watching The Factoid, and remember, never stop learning. Thank you. If you like my videos, please stay in tune for more. More videos on the facts that almost everybody missed. Used to be in the Olympics, and hey, rugby fans, plus all the other sports.